So much for deciding to start your morning with us. Just gone by was the sports update. Thank you so much to Oreku Ampofo and the rest of the sports team. We're changing gears right about now. It's time to get into the big conversation of the morning. And I have three very strong gentlemen in the studio this morning. Let me say a good morning, a very good morning, and a warm welcome to the panel this morning. I haven't had my tea as yet, but I trust that you've had some teas and coffees. Good morning, gentlemen. How are we doing?
Good morning.
Let me start off from my right to left or left to right, either way. Okay, so we have in studio this morning Mr. George Sarpong. He's a member of the National Communications team of the NPP. George, good morning to you. Good to see you. Have you had some tea or coffee this morning as yet?
I'm waiting for the one you offer me.
Okay, wow, put me on the spot right there. Some teas and coffees coming your way. We also have in the studio this morning Dr. Ramzi Inusah, member of the National Communications team, Movement for Change. Doc, I think it's your third time on the big conversation.
Yes, and a very good morning to you, Helen. It's been a while.
It has.
Yes, and a very good morning to my co-panelists. And a very good morning to the good people of Ghana. Helen, I am so high in my spirit today because I woke up with a quote, and I don't know how it came. It came to me like a vision.
A quote?
Yes.
You want to share that with us before
I want to share that.
Sure, please do. Please do.
And it says that, what would it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? This is the quote I woke up with today.
All right, we keep that in mind as the discussion.
It's a quote or it's a Bible verse?
Well, it came to him in a dream.
It came to me in a dream. Yes.
So now we can call you prophet then.
Oh.
Also in the studio, I might need a bit of okra for this one, so bear with me as I introduce Mr. Courage Makafui Nunekpeku.
Yes, you've done very well.
Spot on, member.
I think you've done better than Baumia.
Oh, he's had cause to mention your name incorrectly before? Okay.
In terms of performance, you've done very well.
Oh, the preambles, they're getting even juicier as the months progress. He's a member. Good morning, good morning. Member of the National Communications team of the NDC. Thank you. As are all of you. You're all looking very, very great. The city issues are not biting the pocket.
I 100% side with my brother.
Which brother?
What's the name again? The NPP rep.
George.
George. I think we should have given some tea. You know,
some teas. Yeah, that's true. You do wake up very early.
By 4 a.m. because the traffic situation on my stretch is terrible.
Where are you coming from?
From 25.
Oh, okay,
I think one of these days, people should come and have a program over there.
When was the last time we went? A while ago. We went.
Stretch is unbearable. And this traffic is just a matter of somebody doing something, some little things, filling some potholes, and that's it. Okay. There are potholes at vantage points of the stretch. And if to these potholes are filled, the traffic situation will be reduced. It's creating a lot of problem for us. You know, even on Sunday, you have to be in traffic to 10 p.m. to get
Really? On a Sunday?
Yes,
on that
Sunday.
Stretch?
On Sunday. When it rains, you have to get home sometime midnight. This morning, as we speak, there's traffic around Pampram Junction, there's traffic at Savannah, there's traffic at Bombaria, and there's traffic at Action and TT Brothers. And all is being caused by potholes. Deep potholes. I can call it manholes. And it slows down the system. Okay.
That means during this rainy season, which is just beginning, it's going to get very stressful.
And the funny thing is, they come and pour sand mixed with chippings and fill it. And when it rains, they just wash it away. Just add some additives to the chippings, and it will stick there, at least for some time.
At least until the rainy season settles.
To be fixing the road. Then the contractor, the BMI, left the project because of the debt.
Courage, you've already started us off.
Negotiation that is taking place. The contractor pull out of the project.
I see.
And now everything is hanging in there. So step in, fix the potholes so that we can use it. It's very unbearable. One of these days you should come there and have a program.
Definitely
and you
noted.
see what the people living in that street.
George, are you familiar with the issues in that stretch?
No, I live North Legon, so
you're close to me.
Own traffic.
Yes.
I've not seen what he's talking about, but I think that whatever it says, the government exists to solve problems, and it's one of the reasons why I feel that sometimes the way our municipalities operate, they should be up and doing. So, for example, there was a time that I personally had issues with the fact that the Opongo traffic was almost always off. You understand? When it happens like that, everybody blames government, but there's somebody specifically who has been put in charge. There's an MCE for the area.
That's right.
So, for me, I think that the call is spot on. And once Dr. Nunekpeku
is courage, Makafui Nunekpeku. The doctor is coming soon.
Okay, Nunekpeku. Okay, so once my very good brother Nunekpeku has brought this up, I think that is important, and the appropriate authorities are listening to us. I'm sure they will take the necessary measures. That platform is a big one, and
I agree.
People in government listen, so it's important that he's brought it up.
Absolutely.
I think that, some solution or some respite is on the way.
Absolutely. Well, this morning we have a number of items on the menu. We want to talk about election 2024, voter registration wahala. We have some reports from the northern part of Ghana that are not very encouraging. We'll dissect that as we go along. Also, the Atoforsin case, political persecution. That's the question we're putting to all of us this morning. We'll talk about government owing NHIS and the Palugu Dam issue. I'm not too sure if we'll have time to get into all of this, but these are our topics of the morning. Now, even before we get into the EC situation and connect with our correspondent, Christopher Amwaku, let's talk very quickly about the city. George, I'll come to you specifically. Okay. The city appears to still be free falling. This morning on the front page of the Daily Graphic, there's a story. It says, "We will stabilize the city. Finance Minister assures the nation." So I read the story through and through. For me, what stood out, it seems as though the remedies that are being proffered here include borrowing, and more borrowing. George, what else should the people of Ghana expect as government seeks to remedy this situation? It is frightening, the speed at which the city is free falling.
Okay, so I think when it comes to the issues of the city, it is something that all of us are concerned about. Business people, regular citizens.
That's
Even
right.
if you claim not to be concerned about it, you have your child, let's say, trying to school outside the country, definitely you would have to change your cities into other foreign currencies to be able to afford the things that they need to afford. Now, I think that it's important that we look at some of the factors that have consistently impacted the city. Now, one of the things that has consistently affected the value of the city is the fact that as a country, we do not have a national policy on capital flight. You know, we have a lot of multinationals operating in Ghana.
That's right.
Some of them are making as much as $300 to $400 million on a monthly basis. Now, you can talk of the mining industry, you
That's
can talk
right.
of the telecommunication industry. So sometimes you can have as much as, say, $1 billion leaving the country. What that means is that these people go into the market to bid for the scarce dollars that the traders also need to do their imports. And mind you, we are an import-driven economy, so a lot of our things are also dependent on the imports that we bring in. If the importers, our friends in Guta, will be able to bring in the goods that they need for the country to consume, they will also have to go into that same market. Now, when that happens, naturally, it puts a burden on the city. And then you realize that looking at the forces of demand and supply, there will be more people chasing dollars that are now scarce because of the conditions at play.
Right.
Now, this same situation happened to Nigeria. Now, what Nigeria did was that they instituted a policy on capital flight.
Right.
So there was a period that they said that, okay, for this, let's say this time frame of 6 months, all multinationals, no matter how much money you make, you are not repatriating it.
The money stays within the economy.
And then it helps you cushion your currency. Now, there are other countries too that have certain policies, like, for example, no matter how much profit that you make, there's a certain amount that necessarily needs to be paid in the economy. Either you are just keeping it on your books or you are reinvesting it in your company. So if we say, for example, all multinationals are retaining about 30% to 40% of their profits, that naturally slashes how much they repatriate by some 30 to 40%.
Do you think that would help our situation if we take a critical look at capital flight?
Long-term effects, because as for this city effect, government in, government out, it is going to be a problem if the status quo remains. Now, another way of looking at it also is the concept of import substitution. Now, if you look at our bill on imports from, say, 2001 downwards, year on year, we import sugar, we import rice,
everything. Toothpick, yemwadie, I mean, you name it.
On a yearly basis, our import for sugar is approximately $400 million. So that means that every year, our traders will have to go into the market in search of $400 million to import just sugar. That is just sugar, rice, and all the other items on the bill. So those are some of the things that we would have to look at in the medium to long term.
Well, there are some policies that government put in place to address that.
So I'm coming to that.
Okay.
Then one of the other issues that also affects the value of our city is speculation. Everywhere around the world, speculation affects the strength of the currency.
Expand on that first, Josh.
So when I sit in your studio, for instance, and I make a claim that, the city is likely to hit, let's say, 25 cities in the next 3 months. If all persons who have need for the city go into the market now to try and salvage, who have need for the dollar, go into the market now to try and salvage some dollars for themselves, so that speculation I'm making will not negatively affect them or undermine their business prospects, what that will do is that some artificial demand is immediately
so
created.
Ultimately Sikampedidi.
That is true. That is true. That is true. So when that happens, it would now push a new demand in addition to the existing demand. You remember some time back when some banks were facing some problems. One of the things that really affected them was panic withdrawal. So let's say if you take a big bank like ABSA, GCB, or any of them, if all the customers get up today and say we are going to the bank to withdraw our funds, they won't survive. You understand? So those things also affect the value. So in the long term, those are conversations that we need to have as a nation. Now, coming to some of the things that would help stabilize the city.
Yes.
Government has said, through the finance minister, has said that they are going to intensify the gold for oil policy. Now,
how is that doing, actually, the gold for oil policy?
Yeah, so you realize that when it was started and when it was being pursued rigorously, it gained some momentum. But you see, it is not a policy that our players in the petroleum sector and some of the other players, and when you bring in something that is new, it takes a while for people to embrace it wholly as sacrosanct and something that we want to
So is it the
back.
lack of it being embraced is what is affecting its efficacy?
No. So you realize that when the policy came in, there was some stability, and even with not just the dollar, but the petroleum pricing and all of that. It appears that at some point, and it's also dependent on our level of production for gold and, the seasons that we produce more, the peak seasons and all of that. So you need all those things to be in check before you can actually make all of that. Now, you get to a point where you realize that it is definitely one of the ways that should, as it were, be put on the table as a specific measure for addressing some of these things. So, for example, now...
But George, if we say it should be put on the table, it has been put on the table. I listened to the Vice President when he outdoored it. He said, this is novel, never been done before. Barter system, it's going to change the game.
It is on the table. But I'm saying that we have practiced this, we have seen its efficacy, and then the timings that we are in calls for it to be intensified.
Where intensification means what, George?
So, for example, previously, if you were doing, say, 10, and it gives you results of A, B, and C, then why not do 20 or 30 because of the situation that you find yourself in?
Right.
So then you intensify it, so the benefits that you inure to you when you implemented it, we can have more of that ripple effects for the general economy. And mind you, when it comes to even the petroleum sector, for instance, you have things that when there are the changes on the international markets with regards to the Brent crude prices and all, this can also be a question, because definitely the way our economy is fashioned, when you even have an increment in the price for there's a trickle-down effect on almost every other item or commodity item on the market. So those things are very important.
Okay, George, not to slight tackle here. So gold for oil, we know that it turned out to be now a two-pronged approach. It's gold and cash for oil. It's not just gold for oil. So you say if we make it strictly gold for oil, for example, we intensify that could give us some good results. So stop the two-pronged approach, gold and cash for oil, and make it strictly as the Vice President announced it, gold for oil only.
So if you follow the President or the Finance Minister, the basis for all of that is that we've seen the successes of its implementation. So because of the timings that we are in and how efficacious the whole process was, now let's intensify it so that we can get better results for it. Now, one of the things also with this whole dollar thing is that there are things that help the city to stabilize and there are things that do not help the city's stability. Now, on the global market, if you've taken some time, you realize that the dollar on the global market has gained some strength.
This is true.
So it is doing well and it is working against almost every trading currency, even against the pound, against the yuan, against major trading currencies.
This is true.
And that's pressure because of how our economy is fashioned out. Ultimately, when you have shocks on the global market, it translates into your economy. So you have to find ways of cushioning it. Now, some of the ways that in the short to medium term we are going to be able to cushion is the fact that there are some interventions. For example, the finance minister mentioned that there are some engagements with the EcoBank group who are going to make an investment in the country to help with some entrepreneurship programs in the small scale sector. It's running to about the initial funds coming in is around $200 million. It's scalable to about $2 billion. There are some World Bank arrangements that some 2 tranches are coming in $150 million and another extra $200 million.
So some of these are loans, some of these are, you call them investments. What does that mean to the everyday Ghanaian when you say it's an investment?
So with the EcoBank group thing, it is going to be invested in the Ghanaian economy, specifically in the private sector, the SME. So if you look at how our economy is, about 80% of the industries and the private sector owned. About 80% of businesses is private sector owned. So when you have some support coming in for the private sector, what it means is that one, you're going to be able to create more employment, you're going to be able to expand the private sector, and then you are going to have some ripple effects on taxation and every other thing that helps the economy to be on its feet. So these things coming in the short to medium term would be able to...
you think will help cushion the blow?
Yes, it will cushion,
help the everyday Ghanaian? You think we'll feel that impact on our pockets?
Definitely, definitely. The same way we are feeling the impact of the dollar rise, and when it reduces, we will feel it. But most importantly, for me, I think that where we should be looking at as a country is the long-term measures that we can use to stabilize the city, irrespective of the politics of the MPP and the NDC and the Afafranto and anything. There are long-term measures that we need. Those are hard conversations that we need to have as a people. Like I mentioned to you, at this point in our lives, we should be moving and gravitating towards things that help us become a self-sufficient economy and not consistently be import-driven. And then the regular Ghanaian people would have to also help us by alternating their taste, because some of these things come with...
That comes up a lot. That comes up a lot, George. We'll weigh in on that. Thank you for that. Karaja, I'll come to you. Listening to George and some of the measures he says that are in the pipeline, some investments are coming, and so on and so forth. Does that fill you with confidence as you project into the future?
I can sympathize with him. It's now beginning to sound like how some of them sounded in 2016, 2015.
What do you mean by that?
When they wanted power. You can see clearly that my brother, unfortunately, he have to come and speak, and he's struggling.
You say it's unfortunate?
So, yes, unfortunate.
Why is that?
Somebody have to speak for the party, and those who cause the mess are somewhere, and he have to come in and sit and take the bullets.
Okay, so let me ask you a direct question, because this comes up often. Government communicators tell us that it's the external factors. They are a big problem. Well, George adds some more to that. He talks about speculation, capital flight. I want to ask you, what percentage, Courage, would you attribute our woes? What percentage would you attribute to external factors? So COVID-19, and George didn't mention COVID-19 or Russia, Ukraine, but I am mentioning it here because these are factors that we do know have affected the globe or different countries in varying degrees. What percentage would you attribute government's woes or our country's woes to the external factors, and what percentage would you say are home problems?
Very minimum percentage, maybe 10% to the external factors.
You say 10% external?
90% are home problems that we have. As a matter of fact, if I am a businessman and I have heard or seen on television that a minister of state has such a huge sums of dollars in his house, what will come to mind? I'll also look for dollars and keep in my house. These are the problems. 1D, 1F, fantastic slogan, but didn't work.
Fantastic slogan or fantastic policy?
It's a slogan. The policy they did not implement anything 1D, 1F. I can tell you there are a lot of factories that they parade around calling it 1D, 1F. But when you go into the details, they go to outside this country, I don't want to mention any country, buy the products, the finished product, come and store it in their warehouse and just distribute under the guise of they are manufacturing it here.
Maybe there's some assembling going on.
And no, what kind of assembly? That is how deceptive the 1D, 1F has become. They thought they were deceiving Ghanaians. They thought they were deceiving us. But at the end of the day, they are exposed. You can see it. You don't manage the economy the way they were managing it. Right from the onset, we told them, these things you are doing, you will fail. You don't get $3 billion every year. At the beginning of the year, you are getting $3 billion to come and show your forex and think you are managing the economy. And when the external doors are locked, then you are stuck. Your city starts struggling. It's because your policies right from your first year up to 7th year are all totally wrong. You don't have any good policies. All that my brother is talking about, these were things they should have done right from the beginning. This country, apart from the fact that almost everything is imported, it's import-driven economy.
That's right.
We are importing everything. And you said you want to change the narrative where we are going to move from taxation to production, where we'll be producing and consume what we produce. Ghana will go beyond aid. These are fantastic slogans. So we expected them to put it to practicality by building the factories, producing the things in the country, and we are consuming them. And we will start looking for forests to go and buy the sugar he's talking about, the rice, the soap, and everything is being imported. Apart from that, you must have local participation in every sector. Talk about oil, insurance, banking, name all of them. When that is done, what he's talking about, the capital flight, will reduce. Because if you, Ghanaian, you own a bank here and you're operating the bank, whatever profit you make, you will reinvest some. Of course, major part of the money will remain in the country. But the foreign banks, they have to take it somewhere. They are not for the Christmas. They need to repatriate their profit back home. How do they do that? They have to look for forex and take it back. When you collapse, deliberately collapse companies, this will be the result you face. Immediately, you were enjoying it in your first year, second year, third year. In your 7th year, you see how you are struggling. At the time you were collapsing, the Ghanaian-owned banks, Ghanaian-owned businesses, Ghanaian-owned insurance companies, Ghanaian-owned oil and gas companies. We were telling you, be careful. Because these people who are in these industries, they are foreigners. And when they earn the money, when they have the money, they need to repatriate it. Here we are. Look, I am not a prophet of doom, but the way the city is behaving, if they do not quickly, as a matter of alacrity, instruct their government officials to stop struggling with the city, with the businessmen, the city will hit the 20.
But Kaj, is this the type of speculation that then causes some sort of panic, sends certain signals into the market and makes our situation worse? Does it bring you joy to see the city free falling?
I have factories. I am suffering the price of it as well. I'm a businessman. But that's a fact, that's a reality. Look, there is a supplier, a company that supply me some goods. They just wrote to me that they are leaving Ghana. And their reason is the business environment is hostile towards them. They cannot predict, they can't plan for even 1 month.
And that appears to be the running theme for some of these multinational companies that are leaving our shore. Talk about taxes, just the business environment is simply not friendly. I'll move on quickly to Doc because this one wasn't really on the menu, but because of the number of comments I've received this morning, when we started our news review talking about the city stabilizing, the Ghanaian people said they're not so sure if they're feeling that in their pockets. So I wanted us to have a bite on that.
Let me just conclude
yes, please.
By saying Take, for example, you have to look for $33,000 for one GBC board member just to go and spend in South Africa and come back. Multiply it by the number of times. These are all issues that can be an intervention. Not just that man. That is just GCB. Another company, another government, state agencies spending the dollar unnecessarily. Bank of Ghana, you are sitting there. Every school in this country is charging in dollars. Every hotel is charging in dollars. Just your backyard here, ask of a shop, they will tell you in dollars. Cantonment, East Lagos, everywhere, everybody is charging in dollars. What are you doing as the regulator? Can't you form a task force? Zoom down on these people. Take some serious draconian measures. Put in some punitive punishment for them. And this thing will begin, the trend will begin to reverse. Aside that, put in some sort of, measures for your government officials to control them. How they struggle with the dollar with businessmen. No, the dollar, as we speak now, we are in dry season, and the dollar is the cedi is depreciating like this. The rainy season is coming. When people have to go to Hajj, Mecca.
That's right.
When we have to start importing towards Christmas, that will start around June, July, August.
And in fact, when we have to start paying back our debts, we put a hold on that, didn't we?
Exactly.
I know Sikam Pedede, but this speculation, George,
for the debt,
it's not sounding good.
It's not looking good at all.
It's not looking good. It's not looking good. Thank you for that, Kaish. Doc, I'll come to you quickly, and then we'll get on to our actual menu for the morning. Do you know Joe Jackson? He's the acting CEO of Dalex Finance. He's one that we often speak to on matters concerning money. He says that, yes, COVID-19, Russia, Ukraine, other external factors, those things exist. But the reason why they are biting us so hard is that we were already teetering on the edge. So those things just gave us a small push, and that was the end of it. Because all around us, countries are reeling from the impact, but not as harshly as we are. What do you have to say? And then we'll get on to easy matters.
I agree with his statement, which is a fact. Helen, we're in this country where a purported economic erudite once said that when the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose.
Doc, who's an erudite?
An erudite is someone who has knowledge in a particular field.
Like an expert. Yeah, like a whiz kid.
Economic whiz kid.
Got it. I follow. Yes.
We all come from the same village. I'm also from Wali Wali.
I see.
As well, yes. So they call him the Wali Wali whiz kid. But we've seen it clearly, all right, about how he's able to manage the cedi and the economy. Helen, the issue of fuel pricing is becoming a problem on the lives of ordinary Ghanaians. As fuel is touted as an inelastic demanded commodity, that no matter how the price change, there's still demand. The demand does not change, right? If you look at this government's performance in managing our forex, it's so abysmal. It's so abysmal, Helen. And there are so many factors that lead to the cost of fuel. One, which I agree with George, is to do with the global market pricing, the fluctuation of prices. Secondly, is to do with the supplier's premium. Thirdly, the freight cost, which we all know that freight cost has gone high. And then with the forex risk and also taxation. Now, which things do we have in control? We control the taxation. We can control our forex. And I'll tell you some of the solutions that we, the members of the Movement for Change, have tabled down to ensure that we stabilize the cedi.
George, you have your pen ready.
And then
the Butterfly Movement said they have some suggestions for us. In fact, even Carrot, you can write down some.
The freight.
Down. Yes.
The freight cost as well. If you look at all these three, right, we can come in by having our own tankers. Right? Our own tankers to go and bring these crude into the country, or even process it here, as Centor is doing under the auspices of the 1D, 1F, which Honorable Alan Kodo-Tramantin was a main architect in formulating this policy, which has been able to create 160,000 direct and indirect jobs, and we have 126 factories that are in operation currently.
Doc, where are these figures coming from?
Oh, they are coming from the Ministry of Trade and Industry.
Okay, you don't happen to have it here with you that I can peruse?
I've said that, so I'm on
figures.
Published in
they're
the
published. Yeah, they're in the budget. Yes.
Sure.
So when it comes to the forest risk, okay, this government has borrowed abysmally. They have borrowed so much that we are using about 70% plus of our tax revenue to service our debt. Right? And so there's a huge demand. Government is competing for dollars with the private sector to be able to furnish its debt. The issue of also capital flight, which I agree with my brother here, that we have a lot of multinational companies that are taking away huge sums of dollars in a form of their profits repatriation.
That's right.
Right, which Ghana is actually a free market economy, and so we do not impose certain restrictions on profit repatriation, which government needs to look at. Right.
I found that quite interesting, George. That and a few people have asked some questions about how that is doing in Nigeria. That's something we can certainly expand on.
With the issue of profit repatriation, we, under the Movement for Change, and as espoused by our leader, Honorable Alan Kojo Tramantin, says that he will negotiate with the Bank of Ghana and then these multinationals so that they have a structured plan on how they will repatriate their profits. Instead of 100%, maybe it will be seasonal. Looking at the seasonal shocks that comes with the dollar in terms of its demand. For example, you look at Christmas, when Muslims are going for Hajj, and I mean in the beginning of the year, when everyone is going back, or school kids are going back to their various universities abroad and all that. And so we would have a structured format where we would allocate certain chunks of monies, foreign reserves, to multinationals to be able to repatriate, not in 100% form, but also like in bits and chunks, so that we can be able to have a less shock effect on the depreciation of the cedi. Secondly, as well, if you look at the forex cover for the Bank of Ghana, right, the forex cover for the Bank of Ghana to the cedi is about 40% of forex reserve. So we want to increase it from 40% to 70%, so that we have a 70% forex cover for the cedi, because it's about demand and supply.
Right.
When there's so much demand, and which I agree with my brother that everything has been dollarized in this country. That today you're even going to buy perfumes and you need
it's in dollars. I mean, you look at the signboards. We're not shy at all. It's on the sign everywhere. It is on the flyers. You go online. I mean, one day you go to your watcher joint and they'll quote you in dollars.
Absolutely.
When they actually do $2, really $1. It's possible.
Absolutely. And so these are progressive policies that we will put in place. We need to increase the forex reserves from 40%, the FX cover for the cedi, from 40% to 70%, so that we can be able to meet the demands for dollar in this country. And also, let me tackle the gold for oil policy.
Yes, Doc, summarize for me in a minute, please.
Helen, the gold for oil policy. I mean, it saddens me every time. I mean, I have a feeling of melancholy when I hear members of the ruling party tout and praise this policy that is failing. I mean, how do you peg a volatile commodity to another volatile commodity? I don't know where he got this aspiration to peg gold to oil. It doesn't make sense, Helen. Gold is a very volatile commodity in the market, right? Today, what happens if gold falls by 20 or 30%? Right? It means that it would have an effect on the cedi. Right? And then secondly, the issue with sustainable development, right? We all know that the anthropogenic activity of small-scale miners or illegal miners is having an effect on our water bodies, right? And so we need to really move away from this policy, the gold for oil policy, because it's not sustainable.
Well, George says we need to intensify as opposed to move away from it.
It's not sustainable, Helen, because there are teething issues as far as our environmental issues are concerned.
That's right.
You understand? And so if you peg a commodity that we don't have, I would say, sustainable practices in mining, in the mining sector, you would deplete your forest reserves. You would have a very negative effect on your water bodies, as we're seeing today, which there's a report that in the next 5 years or 10 years, Ghana would have to import water. And so if you peg gold in this regards to oil and you don't have the right task force to ensure that EPA is not well funded, to ensure that the miners adhere to best practices, environmental practices, I don't think that this would really sustain us as a country.
Thank you for that, Doc.
Please,
so
just give me 30 seconds, please.
Okay, and then just 30 seconds, and then I'll read a few comments off the back of our conversation concerning the economy, and then we'll get on to the EC issues. We have some very meaty issues to sink our teeth into. Yes.
The government have to be deliberate in their policy as far as this forex issue is concerned. One of them have to do with, you remember during the NDC time, we deliberately targeted an industry like the pharmaceutical industry, where we gave them interest-free loan so that they can produce, get the equipment and produce most of the medicines that we need and reduce the importation of medicine. When they came, they couldn't continue, and most of the pharmaceutical industry are suffering, and we have to go back to import medicine. The second one have to do with, we deliberately allocated crude oil 45 to 60 barrels a day to Tor to refine for local use. That policy went on until 2017 whereabout. When they came, they stopped it. If that has continued and they even increase it to 100,000 barrels a day, we will reduce our forex to go and look for, buying oil. All right. So some of these things have to be a deliberate action targeted at a particular area where we need a lot of forex.
Absolutely.
To import some of these goods.
Okay, so some comments here talking about George. I'll also give you 30. George, please come in. Another 30 for Doc, and then I'll read some comments. Then we have to move on to the EC matters. George, let's hear you, please.
Okay, so there are two quick things I want to respond to. So Doc mentioned this calling 1D1F field and all of that. So quickly, I have sent a list of some 1D1F companies.
Doc, you have to clarify.
So Doc,
we have incoming Doc.
Incoming Doc.
Yes, and then we have actual Doc.
Abu Brother Courage.
Yes, we have Courage and Dr. Ramzi.
Yes. So he mentioned some things about 1D1F.
Yes.
I've said, if you give me the permission, I'll go through them, some of the companies and their employment.
In fact,
and all
shortly, we'll put it up on our Facebook. So again, if you're watching us on Facebook, or if you're not yet watching us on Facebook, get onto our Facebook page at 3FM 92.7. So we've got that up on the screen now.
If Doc wants to abreast himself of the progress,
this is the success of
he should go through them to look at the success of the MPP government. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the fact that Dr. Ramzi says that gold for oil, he is not too, he does not favor the concept and all of that. What Dr. Ramzi needs to understand is the fact that in development economics, there's something that we call factor endowment. You look at some resource that is readily available in your country and you harness it for your socio-economic development. Now, day in, day out, there's going to be production of gold. Ghana produces gold to the tune of about $7 billion on an annual basis. Now, what the gold for oil policy does is that it does not call for necessarily new productions whatsoever. It only gives the government what in business terms we call the right of first refusal. So, for example, all those who produce their gold, they are definitely going to sell it. Those in the private sector and all of them are going to sell it. So, what you do is that you sell it to the government, and the government uses that for that policy.
Right.
So, it is not
government has first dibs, if you will.
Definitely.
Right.
So it's just like how you have shareholders in a business, and when you want to introduce new shares, where the Companies Act, it gives them the right of first refusal, which means that you have to go to your current shareholders and say, hey, do you have need to buy extra shares? If they have no need for it, then you go outside. You understand how? So when you have such a arrangement, so that is what the goal for you literally does. It does not necessarily mean that we should turn the whole of the country into a mining site. That is not the case. Now, if you say because gold has some level of volatility on the international market, so you cannot peg it against, I mean, that argument equally is neither here nor there. If you even peg your cash against your, let's say, if you peg Ghana's cash against your the crude that you want to import in, equally, currencies are not stable. They have some level of volatility. We have seen it with the pound. The pound depreciated during the COVID era. We've seen very strong currencies on the international market depreciate. So the argument is neither here nor there. What is important is that, one, gold is produced in Ghana. No matter what happens, that gold will be sold. If we can benefit from that gold to get some cushioning for our local currency so that we are doing better, why not? Let's go for it. For me, I think that's the clarity that Dr. Ramzi, my good friend, needs to understand. And I think that this morning he has to know that his good brother from Wale Wale, that he's also from, will stay at the right way.
Interestingly, the list that we put up, if we can put it up again on our Facebook page again, you can find us on Facebook. We're streaming live at 3FM 92.7. Dr. Ramzi, you say Dr. Alan Tramanting will take credit for this.
Absolutely.
I see.
Absolutely. And they know it for a fact. And whoever has any contrary view can spill it out this morning, and then we'll bring out the truth. Ellen, yes.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, let's move on. We could talk about the economy for a long time, but
we have all these companies. Why is industry growing at negative 2%?
That's a fair question, George. That is a fair question.
Why is industry growing at negative 2%? In your own budgets, if you have all these companies producing for us, why is the city suffering? Why are we still importing more and more?
So, Ellen, if
all these companies are there producing in Ghana,
if you don't take courage,
I gave you the
link.
Doc, bear with me one quick second. Yes, I will.
If you don't take, let me tell you.
I don't speak when anybody else is speaking. I will.
Definitely. And I just wanted to allow George to quickly come in there. And get into the mic for me, George, a little bit, position it properly. And that's a fair question. Would you not agree that Courage is asking, with all of this that you are showing us, we do know that industry is growing in a negative direction?
Okay, so when you talk about growth, you don't just pick one item of growth.
Okay.
So, for example, last year, we had a growth target. We exceeded it by about almost 2%.
Okay.
So you don't just pick one aspect of growth and say, so it's cumulative. You have agriculture, you have all the other sectors, and cumulatively gives you the country's economic growth.
Okay.
So you don't just pick one item and say industry is growing by negative. In any case, you can just sit on radio and say industry growing by negative. When you say that, you don't give any actuals.
No,
you understand?
I'm referring to your budget. It's not. I'm not just saying.
You have not made any reference, Doc.
No, I'm making reference to your budget. The last budget was
not made any reference. If you say industry is growing by a certain figure, you should be able to put it out and say.
No, but this is saying that it's captured in your own budget.
No, he is making reference to a material, so he should give specifics so that we can respond to it.
Now the specific is your budget.
If I come here,
the last budget,
if I sit on this radio and I say that Media General is not doing well on the viewership numbers, will you take that?
If it's a fact, we're not doing well on viewership numbers. We're not doing well on.
You will know it is a fact when I'm able to tell you that. Okay, this is my source document. According to that source document, you have viewership in the morning for, let's say, 1 million. Your sister station has 3 million. This is other person.
Courage, what is your source document?
He's not saying nothing. He's just doing the regular NDC rhetoric.
24 budget. That's the source. And we are talking about a specific industry in the budget, and we are dealing with industries here. So it's just fair.
I'm just saying that when you are doing economic assessment, it is not done that way.
No.
I don't know if doctor is an expert in
I think we'll have to, in terms of the money conversation, we'll have to park it. But Doc, I'll have to give you the last 30 seconds, and then we have to move on with this conversation. This one was just a light preamble. Now we've got into the nitty gritty of the economics of this country.
Helen, the issue of the depreciation of the cedi as far as fuel pricing is concerned. We've had this goal for oil policy for a while now, right? It's not as if government is putting a gun on the heads of OMCs or BDCs to accept this policy, right? But what I can tell my brother is that it's not working. It is not working. Gold is a highly volatile commodity on the market. You can't peg it to fuel. You understand what I'm saying? Both also have, especially for being an inelastic demanded commodity, you can't peg it with gold. And so that clearly shows, if you look at the price of four, it keeps on appreciating day by day. You can see it. It's not actually working. And if you look at the cost of four in our pumps today, we have one of the highest four regimes in West Africa in terms of cost.
Right.
You understand? And let me also state that there's an innovative policy that has been proposed by our leader, Honorable Alan Kodo-Kyerematen, which is to mitigate the forex risk when it comes to trading. And he is saying that he would give a fixed rate when you're going to pay your duty at the ports for a period of 6 months. So if you are importing let's say cars, right? And the price is $20,000, and we know the value of $20,000 today. Maybe $1 is maybe 10 cedis, and then later on in the next 5 months, $1 is 20 cedis.
So you say that
pay with the initial rate.
That 10 cedis would remain.
That will remain.
I see, and that's something
will give
that
you some comfort.
The movement says they can initiate. Well, I'm sure we can get experts in the field who can weigh in on this and tell us if it's workable as it is. Let's move on now and talk about
experts here.
I beg your pardon. Do forgive me. Some external experts, just to balance it out.
You mean non-political experts?
If they do exist in the space. All right, gentlemen.
I think that experts are experts, irrespective of their political colorization or orientation. So, for example, if something is A and it's a fact, if you are an expert, you cannot.
Well, George, I would hope that would be the climate, but I do see sometimes experts. George, are you going to tell me that we don't see sometimes experts?
Well, we are not accepting the flaws in this economy, saying that he's just merely made.
Doc, I beg your pardon, but George, are you not saying that? Are you sometimes? I listen to experts all day, all night, and sometimes something that is A, they'll say is A adjacent. Sometimes.
I mean, see, there are some things that you as a person you can have some, like in your field, what we call the journalistic discretion.
Right.
You can decide on how to tell a certain story.
That is correct.
But the story itself, you cannot change it. So an expert can have an opinion on how he thinks the way we should go. But the very, very fact, there's no way you can change it. You understand? So you can be an expert. I mean, there is no expert in this country who does not have a political orientation. That person may not be an out and out partisan politician or known person in the politics, but definitely they will have their leanings. They vote. I mean, the church leaders vote, the Islamic leaders vote, even the electoral commissioner will vote.
Everybody votes.
I mean, everybody will have.
But thank you, gentlemen. I think we got some interesting perspectives on what is going on as far as the economy is concerned, and some very interesting solutions. But let's move on to issues concerning the voters' registration. Now, the Sanerigu constituency in the northern region experienced some disturbances yesterday, Sunday, when gunshots erupted at the voters' registration center. The ruling New Patriotic Party, NPP, and the opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC, are accusing each other of being responsible for the incident. The gunfire started after a vehicle arrived at the registration center carrying people intending to register for their voter cards. Following an argument about the new arrivals, unidentified gunmen stormed the center and began shooting. Very shortly, we'll connect with our northern regional correspondent, Christopher Marco. But gentlemen, I'll start off with you. Beg your pardon. Oh dear, I'll start off with you, Courage. What do you make of this, of the voter registration? It's been fraught with some violence here and there. We know in the beginning there were challenges with the systems and all of that. From where you sit, how has the exercise gone so far?
Well, I think today is the last day of the exercise. Is that correct?
I believe there's an extension.
By 5 days.
They are extending it for another 5 days. Yes. Fine, I'm not privy to that information when I was entering. So from the 7th up to date, I think it has not been bad, apart from some of the problems we encountered. The BVD is not working, and we have to shift from to manual way of doing it offline. We have to shift from online to offline to be able to register, and we had some intermittent breakdown of the equipment. I think all these problems that some of us thought, The EC have done this work over and over and over again for some time now, right from the days of Dr. Farijan to Charlotte Osei to even the current chairperson during before 2000 election. They had several registration exercises then, now, and even the recent one they did before the assembly election. They could have learned some vital lessons and bring it on board to inform this particular one. But it appears no seriousness or no lesson has been learned. And the EC appear not to prepare for the whole exercise. That's where my concern is. If you even look at how they tabulate the figures into their website, very terrible and very suspicious. When figures are being put out there, you don't know who is in charge of that system and who is adding what and who is supervising what and who is watching what. When we were vigilant, because we are collating the figures on daily basis. When I say we, I'm talking about the NDC.
Right.
So quickly we were able to detect that, no, something wrong. The figures they put up in their website is wrong. Since that time, they've stopped updating their website on daily basis as they used to do, which is very unfortunate. We thought they should have continued. Then that would be a check for all of us to see that if we are all in tune of what is going on. If you don't do that and you finish the whole program and you start churning out figures that will not correspond with what the major stakeholders, which are the political party, have, that's where the conflict will start coming up. You know?
All right, and bear with me just now. We've been able to connect with our Northern Regional correspondent. Let's deal with that, and then we'll come back to how the registration is going. Christopher Marco is our Northern Regional correspondent. He joins us now. Chris, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Please give us an update. Or in fact, take us back to yesterday. What happened in the Sanerigu constituency? We are told of some exchange of gunfire. We're also projecting some images on our Facebook page, so do check it out. Chris, what do you know?
Yes, so on Saturday, before the close of the exercise, there was some confrontation between supporters of the NPP and the NDC over some allegations made by the NDC that the NPP candidate for the Sanerigu constituency, Felicia Tete, together with her team, were smuggling people from other constituencies who are not known individuals in the Sanerigu constituency to come and register. So a report was made, a formal complaint was lodged to the EC by the NDC, and the NDC hoping that the next day the NPP will not repeat that. So the following day, which was yesterday, Sunday, the NDC people raised an allegation again that the NPP continued to smuggle or bring aliens to the registration center to register, and they protested again. Their protest resulted in some misunderstanding, in fact, heated confrontation between the two parties, which led to each of them calling their supporters who were not presently at the registration center. And when they came wielding weapons. Some were holding machetes, others were holding guns, and they started firing at each other. This led to an abrupt disruption and ended the exercise at that particular moment. It took the intervention of the police reinforcement team who came to sanitize the situation. Fortunately, no one was injured, but properties were destroyed at the registration center.
I see. What sort of property was destroyed at the registration center?
Yeah, so chairs that these applicants were sitting on as they wait for their turn were destroyed. The canopies that were used to sort of prevent the sun from getting directly at these applicants were also destroyed, and motorbikes that belonged to the supporters outside were also destroyed.
I see. Do we know what the temperature is like this morning in the constituency?
Yes, so yesterday after incident, it took the exercise like 1 hour off, and so the police reinforcement team, when they arrived, they were able to ensure that sanity prevailed and the exercise continued. As we speak today, the exercise has begun and it's going on smoothly. But the only thing is that you see a lot of police officers at the registration center.
Okay, so there is police reinforcement, you say, as the exercise continues.
Yes, there's tight security at the Sanagru Registration Center. And this has also led to some security deployment to the Tamale Metro Registration Center because of the incident that happened at the Sanagru Registration Center yesterday.
So some preemptive measures being taken by the police to ensure that in other areas we don't see this sort of fracas.
Exactly. And the police has also given indication that they are going to identify the perpetrators of yesterday's act and also pursue and arrest them and make them face the full rigor of the law.
Thank you so much for that update, Christopher. As always, we'll be looking to you for subsequent ones to follow. Christopher Marco is our Northern Regional correspondent. So, Courage, I'll come back to you to wrap up on that and also weigh in on this, and then I go to George and then
avoidable.
Doc.
You know, when you limit the registration to a particular point, with just few, mobile, vans going around, this is what is bound to happen.
You say that we should take the violence as par for the course?
No. If you listen to me carefully, I said all these things are avoidable.
Okay.
All right? That means I'm saying that no. I mean, this is just an exercise we are to get your voter ID card to vote. There's no need for all these confrontation, gunshots, cutlasses, and all stuff like that. It's totally unnecessary. No. It's not right. We should avoid some of these things. But I'm saying that some of these things can be prevented if the Electoral Commission have taken notes of the stakeholders, the major stakeholder like the political party. I was even expecting them to schedule an IPAC meeting weekly of this exercise where they will meet, because no matter what you say, there will be issues. So let's schedule IPAC meeting every week during the program.
And the NDC will attend.
We even requested for an IPAC meeting when we started the exercise, and there was a problem. We keep telling them this, that. They were not listening. So we have to call for an IPAC meeting. They said no. That was the reason why we have to, remember the press conference we held and have to express our issues and all that. Okay? So the Electoral Commission seems not to be prepared and always looking at anybody who try to correct or express opinion as somebody who is, like Bosma would say, you are a threat to democracy. I mean, those words and stuff like that are not good for democracy, right? So I'm saying that when you limit the registration to a particular place, even if they were going to make it electoral areas, that would have made it easy for people.
You say that would mitigate some of what
exactly
we are
mitigate
seeing.
some of these issues and let people go and register. But when you place it at a district office, of course, people have to be mobilized to go and register.
Okay, let's go to George quickly, and then Doc, I come to you. Then we can move on quickly to our third issue. We won't be able to exhaust our fourth and fifth, but I know the issue of the ambulance saga is one that many of you want to hear your panelists speak about. So, George, what do you make of this? First of all, let me know your assessment of how the EC has conducted this voter registration, and also the pockets of violence perpetrated, we're told, by the NDC and the NPP. And I note with a lot of concern some of the language from both parties. We'll match you boot for boot. If you think you are men, we'll come and meet you. I mean, this kind of language we're seeing just in the registration so far. NPP and NDC, why?
Okay, so on our side, we have not made such comments. If you recall, it was former President Mahama who said when it comes to violence, nobody can beat the NDC to it in this country. On our side, we have not made any such comments, and then we would continue to abide by the.
I mean, I've heard things like we will not hand over to any other party.
So when you hear a statement in context, you should put it in a proper context. So, for example,
so that's say on the.
So
yours is in context.
Courage's mic is now officially switched off.
If you think that John Mahama former President, His Excellency, made that statement in context. When you get your time, you can explain the context in which he said that they are the masters of violence in the country. We are not masters of violence, and we would always go on to project that we abide by the tenets of the democracy, like good governance, among other things, and we appreciate peace, and we would always want the country to be peaceful.
You see, as a party, that is the ethos, that is your thinking. Now, so even when some of your members break away from this thinking, that is just on them solely. So, for example, you have Katie Hammond says, "I'll beat him mercilessly."
No, I think that if an adult makes a statement or an adult commits a crime, that person should be treated as an adult. I remember there was a time in this country where one very senior, respected person, I wouldn't want to mention his name, his child was involved in some shady stuff. He was arrested, and they called him, and he asked if they noted the age of his child. And they were like, yes, he's 21 years. And he says, if he's 21 years, he's an adult. You don't need to call me their father for anything. So I think that if certain persons make certain statements on their own accord, they should be treated in accordance with what the law says. Now, if a political party makes a statement, then you respond to it as an official statement of the party and treat it likewise. You understand?
All right. I'm with you, George. I'm with you.
Now, when it comes to these issues that we are looking at, which is the voter registration exercise, personally, I wanted to know how the EC is conducting this exercise. So I took my time. I went back to my constituency, the Fija-Kwabre South constituency in the Ashanti region 2 weeks ago to observe the process. I was there on Saturday, on Sunday, and other days to just observe the process.
Sure.
Now, one of the things you will see is that you have reps from the MPP and the NDC who are also there helping with the EC's process. Before this process started, the EC made a publication. In that publication, they listed all the gazetted areas of registration. Now, what is instructive to note is that any area that is not gazetted on the EC's list, you cannot have any numbers coming from there.
Okay.
And so you cannot have any voter numbers coming from any other place. Now, the process that the political parties have also introduced, which is the MPP and the NDC, by recording the numbers at the various registration center, helps to be a check on the EC. So the EC's numbers cannot be different from the numbers of the various political parties. So if you go to a typical registration center, when a person is done with the registration, the MPP member takes the details of that registration or the registrant, the NDC member does same. So at the end of the day, both the NDC and the MPP have the numbers that the EC is now going to pronounce. So the EC's collated numbers cannot be different from what the two political parties.
So in your constituency, for example, that is how it is
how it is happening. Okay. I have done the observation in most parts of Ashanti region because I am an Ashanti. I come from Kumasi, and that's where I take my political leaning to. So I have observed the process there. I cannot speak for other areas like North, East, Upper West, and things like that, but I can speak for Ashanti region. That appears to be the process going around the country. Now, there are ways of addressing issues when you don't agree to them. So, for example, in the Mpoho constituency, there was a situation where a deputy secretary for the NDC and one headmaster connived to register minors, people who are not 18 years, and it's against the law. Now, what the MPP...
This was established?
Oh, even some of your sisters, you even published it.
No. I see. Okay. No. I have because I haven't cited that one. That's why I'm asking.
A few minutes ago, you were asking me for the source of my document.
Yes. I have now, it was published by Adom. It was published by about 7 media.
I'll have our production team pull that up. But please carry on.
I even discussed it on Adom TV the other day. So it was published. It is
in the Ashanti region.
No, in Mpoho constituency.
Mpoho, okay.
In Mpoho constituency, it happened. The deputy secretary of the NDC and one headmaster connived to register minors. Now,
the deputy secretary
of the NDC.
There are issues of minor registrations in the Ashanti region as well, George.
No, so if you have some specifics you want to deal with, you can put it on the table. We'll discuss it. But I am talking. I'm citing a specific reference to make my point.
Surely
that in Mpoho constituency, you had the deputy secretary of the NDC and a headmaster connived to register minors. Now, this is what the MPP did. The MPP did not go in arms because when you look at our laws, the fact that a registration has been conducted does not mean that that registration will necessarily be a successful registration. So the law gives you the option that if you have any cause to doubt the eligibility of a person, even if the registration has been made, you can send in a petition and the EC will hold on to that. And it will be a court that will determine that that registration should be deemed a successful registration or not.
So, George, to that effect, then we can mitigate really all of this noise.
And that's what I'm coming to.
Because what I've heard is some people say is that, if we allow the person to register and leave, challenging that is going to be problematic. But that should not be the reason why we cause...
Personally, even in my constituency, I led some of my people to challenge certain registrants. So there are bases for which you can challenge someone. One, if the person is not of capacity, the person has not reached the age of majority, and in Ghana constitutionally is 18 years. If the person is not a Ghanaian, you cannot have foreigners registering.
Right.
Now, two, if the person is not a resident, so for example, I cannot get up and go and register at Ododo constituency because I do not have any ties to the area. I do not work there. I do not live there. I did not school there whatsoever. I can only register in 2 constituencies, in about 4 constituencies in Ashanti region, Fija Kwabre South, in Meisha South, and maybe in Kumewu and in Bosomchi, because I have ties to those areas. Now, what the law says is that if you want to just prevent a registration from being successful, you have to challenge it on this basis, whether the person is not a resident, is not a Ghanaian, and then if the person is also a minor. So the moment you challenge this, you put in a challenge, the EC will hold on to that particular registration, and the card will not be issued to the person who was registering.
Okay.
So there is no need to go and make noise whatsoever. And I think that the political parties need to abide by this principle. So as was done in Impoho constituency, the MPP petition, the corporates were arrested, the cards were held on, and they are not successful registrations. Now, if anybody... And there have been instances too where somebody challenges a registration, it goes to court, and the court assesses all these documents and says that indeed this person is a citizen or this person is qualified, and the registration becomes successful. So if you go to court, for instance, and somebody has challenged that you are not a resident in a certain constituency, you would have to prove that indeed you live in house A and B. Sometimes you have to supply your utility documents, the water bill, electricity bill, amongst other things, to just prove your case. Now, on the other side of the argument is the role of the Ghana Police Service. For me,
and summarize for me,
yes,
so I can also
I'm
break
summarizing
down.
on that point. I think that the Ghana Police Service has to help us as a country in some of these things. Now, if you have followed elections for a while, in this country, there are places that we call election hotspots.
Right.
If you mention a place like Sankore, just put Sankore on Google right now. You will just... Even if you don't add election violence whatsoever, you see a number of stories on election violence related to Sankore. If you come to Ashanti region, there are places like Asawasi, Ejura, where because of the power struggle, oftentimes there are tensions in those constituencies. The Ghana Police Service has a list. Ghana Police Service, in conjunction with the EC, over the years, have built a list of constituencies and places we call election hotspots.
That's
During
right.
these times, I think that the police has to help us by deploying more resources to the places where we consider election hotspots. During elections, if you go to a place like Cantonment, you can go to a polling station, and even if there is no police person there will not be any chaos. But go to a place like, let's say, Kaswa, where people are struggling for power, and even have 3 policemen at a polling station, it may not be enough.
So you say we should strengthen the security in the hotspots.
We know the election hotspots,
and
then
get ahead of it, and get ahead of the violence.
I think it's quite simple a thing to do. It will help us mitigate the violence.
All right. Well, time check. It is some 15 minutes past the hour of 9. You're still live here on 3FM Sunrise, on 3FM 92.7. This is the big conversation. In studio, I have Dr. Ramzi Inusah is the member of the National Communications Team for the Movement of Change. Also, George Sarpong, member of the National Communications Team of the NPP. Courage Makafui Nunekpeku is the member of the National Communications Team of the NDC. We're talking about election 2024, the current ongoing voter registration wahala. Doc, let me come to you also of your and take your views. What are your observations of the registration so far, and also in particular the pockets of violence that we've seen with, in particular, the NPP and the NDC?
Yes, Helen, this issue of electoral registration violence and violence during elections, it's very anachronistic, and it's not new in the minds of Ghanaians.
Doc, we're learning so many big words from you this morning. Anachronistic. What does that mean? Old, okay.
Yeah. Helen, the current state of our society is something that we need to really think of as a patriotic movement. The Ghanaian society is so polarized that today, even families cannot sit and talk to each other because of NDC and MP.
It is worrying. In fact, it permeates every aspect
of society.
I mean, it seeps everywhere.
Even the oxygen we breathe, you understand? Helen, I sat here the last time and I told you that there's an account proverb that says that say a grow bear there every anopa tututu. To wit, if an event will be successful, it begins in the morning. If it will be a failure, it begins in the morning. The current electoral predicaments that we are faced with as a country didn't start today. And it started from the year 1992, when we introduced our 1992 Constitution that gave absolute power to the president, you understand, to appoint the EC chairperson and then the EC commissioners. Today, we're in this country where both the NDC and the MPP are culprits of violation of electoral laws. They have violated a lot of our electoral laws. And that, I mean, the clear case of Sanerugu, it's a clear paradigm. I mean, how do you smuggle people to vote? And why do you even have to bus people to vote? The MPP and the NDC are busing people to vote, and they've turned themselves into BRTs. You understand? Meanwhile, the Metro Mass Transport System has been collapsing under their regime. You understand? But when it comes to issues of electoral matters, they know how to pack the bus and take innocent citizens who, I mean, they have worked on their conscience by incentivizing them with monies and all of you to be able to vote them into office. I mean, Helen, we need to really reform our electoral laws as a country. And that is why we, under the Movement for Change, are proposing that if Ghanaians give us a nod, we will push for a constitutional reform and amend Article 70, Section 2 of our 1992 Constitution, which says that the President, Article 70, Section 2, says that the President would appoint the EC chairperson and other commissioners of the Electoral Commission. We've seen that over the years that there has been a mistrust of the Electoral Commission by the ordinary citizens due to the duopoly of the MPP and the NDC.
That's the signals that you are picking?
Yes, because anytime they're in power, they put their persons in the EC. And we've seen the current composition of the EC commissioners. And we know that some EC commissioners have been patrons of the MPP. And so if they're given the nod to execute their duty as EC commissioners, which the EC should be an independent constitutional body, I mean, there will be some form of bias in the execution of their duty. And that is why we're seeing a lot of violence in the process, because there's no trust. And, you know, the EC chairperson made a promise. I mean, I was with Honorable Alan Kojo Tramontin last week Friday.
As you round up for me, Doc, please.
Last week Friday at the Ayawaso West Wagon constituency, precisely the University of Ghana. And we looked at the processes, and we realized that some of the promises that the EC chairperson made were not evident in the registration center, at the registration center. For example, she promised that she's going to provide generators for all registration centers across the country because of the issue of Tumso. But my constituency, I have not seen a single generator. So I want to ask the issue chairperson, where are the generators?
Where are the generators?
Secondly, issue of network. I mean,
and wait, what constituency is that again?
Ayawaso West Wagon.
Ayawaso West Wagon. All right.
The issues of also, I mean, since the inception of the registration, the challenges with networks and all that.
That's
I mean,
right.
It shows clearly that EC was not even prepared.
But I think some of those teething issues have been sorted out. We did see that in the beginning, like you typically do with these sorts of registration. You have a lot of network challenges.
But do you plan to fail I mean, if you don't plan properly, you will fail. And I think that the EC didn't plan very well. And, you know, I've interviewed some of the EC officials. Look.
Now, what have they said?
They're saying that, look, sometimes even they don't even bring their, their lunch and all that. And they are being fed by the political parties, both the MPP and the NDC. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
You want to put some officials in trouble this morning?
No, I'm telling you.
You said they don't get lunch. Who provides the lunch? Okay.
The MPP and I mean, it's evident. If George has any contrary view to that, or my brother Korechi, they can speak to it. And
put it to them.
I put it to them. And thirdly, Helen, why don't we decentralize?
We're going to the Ashanti region.
Yeah, why don't we decentralize the process? I mean, it's so cumbersome and it's so tiring. People have to travel tens of kilometers to reach to the district office.
I think that's one thing that we all have a consensus on.
And
we all agree on
this
one.
think that it is a deliberate attempt to disenfranchise some Ghanaians.
Doc, I'll pause you there on that very contentious note. Let's go to the Ashanti region and listen to Mr. Benjamin Bano Bio, Ashanti Regional EC Director. Then we'll get onto the phone lines. My colleague Ibrahim Abubakar, Ashanti Regional Correspondent, is on the lines. And then we'll move on to the ambulance trial saga. Take a listen.
We have registered 106,251. 1,085 persons have been challenged. Of this number, 53%, that is 578 of them were challenged for being under age, below 18 years. 37 were challenged for being non-resident, not residing within the electorate they claim to be, and 10% for being non-citizens. And once commission has come out to extend the period for additional 2 days, we hope that those who could not come and write their name, to register, who could not come and register, will take advantage of the situation and come on board so that they will all be registered. We want to ensure an all-inclusive voters register, so that we do not want to leave anyone behind. But you see, you need to also decide to be registered, because registration, even though we have extended it, you cannot force people to come and register. What we want to do is that we want to advise people to take this opportunity to come on board, so that everybody who is registered can exercise their franchise come 7th December.
All right, well, let's get onto the phone lines now. Ibrahim Abubakar is our Ashanti Regional Correspondent, and he'll be expanding on this further. Okay, we have lost Ibrahim on the line. We'll try and reconnect. We did keep him on the line for a bit. Doc, did you want to round up for me?
Yes, so what I can say is, Helen, the party has been, the country has been so polarized by the duopoly of the MPP and the NDC. And it's time for Ghanaians to rise up to the occasion, to realize that these two major dominant parties have not helped the basic desires of Ghanaians as far as social and economic development is concerned. We need to move away from this duopoly and unite the people of Ghana and formulate a long-term developmental plan in consensus with all Ghanaians and all stakeholders as far as our national development is concerned, so that we can be able to lift up this country from poverty to prosperity. And that's why I'm saying that, Helen, these two major parties have violated the electoral laws. And I am challenging Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to tell me, and his campaign team, to tell me where they got data of new registrants from, because I registered at the district office and then all of a sudden I received an SMS from Dr. Bawumia's.
In fact, I wanted to come and ask that, but George says that
the EC has to come clean on this issue, because we would take certain legal steps. How did Dr. Bawumia's team know that I registered at Ayo West Wogo constituency?
Texting, Dr. Bawumia
I have it
texting.
here.
I thought I was the only person that he was texting.
Oh, really?
Also texted me.
I have it here, please.
But okay, George.
Let me read it out. He says that, congratulations, Ramzi, for registering to vote in the December 7th election. Our nation stands at a crossroads.
Okay. So let me connect, Doc. Bear with me. Let me connect with Ibrahim Abubakar real quick, and then George will tell us why Dr. Baumia is texting us. Ibrahim, good morning to you.
Good morning, Helen.
How are you doing?
By grace, we are doing well.
Fantastic. I hope you had a restful weekend.
Very stressful one.
A stressful one. Oh, tell us why it was stressful, and also what is happening in the Ashanti region as far as the voters' registration is concerned. What is the temperature in the region?
Well, Ellen, interestingly, this morning you go to some of the registration centers and you see huge numbers. But few days ago, you go there and you find some few people coming there. In fact, most people thought that today will be the last day. So I'm sure, you know, that the typical Ghana man person coming always on the last day just to be able to register. But fortunately, it's been extended for another 2 days, and it's ending on Wednesday. You know, when the registration began in Ashanti region, with the exception of the disturbance we recorded at Chepa and Edujama, I think generally it's been smoothly, but the issue of basing allegations and counter allegations of bringing non-residents and foreigners to register has been there. You go to all the center. So you go to where MPP is dominating, they always complain that NDC is bringing people, outsiders, to come and register, and foreigners as well. You go to places like Asawase, also where NDC is dominating, and it's the same complaint from the camp of the NDC, also accusing the MPP of bringing foreigners and even non-residents to come and register. Like I said, Chepa, there were disturbances, there were free fights for all, leading to the arrest of 3 Edujama. Even the police had to interdict 3 officers for not doing their duty work. But apart from that, people are now resorting to the use of the challenge form to see the people who do not qualify to register. They are challenging them using the challenge form. So at least that has brought some form of relief and even prevented the violence that we started recording at the beginning of the election. But others too are saying, even with the challenge form, if you challenge that someone is a foreigner or non-resident, proving it also becomes very, very difficult. At the end of the day, the person ends up getting the card. So now some are just allowing them to go. They will also go and bring others from other places to go. You go to Asawasi, for instance. Yesterday I was there throughout the day at Square Pond, and the buzzing of people there is something the EC cannot do anything about it. I know it is against their laws. They've said it over and over and over again, but the political parties are doing it. They are even justifying it that these are people who have decided not to come and register, even though they are qualified to do so. And it is the EC who even have to convince these people to come and register. So if they are not doing that, and the political parties have decided as also part of stakeholders to bring these people to the various registration centers to register, they see nothing wrong with it. And yesterday, even whilst I was there, one lady was arrested. She came there and she was asked whether she has registered before. She said no. Meanwhile, she had registered already in the northern part of the country.
I see.
When they started, her details came out and she was picked up by the police. So these are some of the things happening. But I'm sure between today, tomorrow, and tomorrow next, we will start seeing the pressure that we saw in the first week of the registration at the various centers, because people are moving there in their numbers just so they will be able to secure their voter ID card to be able to be part of the December 7 election.
Ibrahim, thank you so much for that update. And as you said, the next few days are going to be boiling. We'll be connecting with you as we proceed. So we wrap it up here on the issues concerning the EC, the voter registration. And I think, George, your point was buttressed by Ibrahim. It says that the more people that are challenging these, what they're saying, these issues with the challenge form, the less violence that we see in that regard. And that should be encouraged by all parties.
Encourage the political parties to go by that. That's the only way.
Yes. So I'm encouraging you this morning, NPP, NDC supporters who are listening to us, don't go and lose your eye or tooth for any politician. It is not worth it. They are sitting here, they're looking healthy, bountiful. Don't go and it's not necessary.
So Helen, to wrap up, I'm glad that the issue of Basin came up and my allegation has been vindicated.
You've been vindicated?
Of course, because it's eminent that and is
the way George is looking at me, I'm not so sure. And Karen is also looking deep into your eyes.
It is an allegation. No. It is an allegation if it's something that people are hiding from. If you come to my constituency,
but you are hiding from it.
Get closer to the mic for me. Or you can move it freely.
If you come to my constituency, for example, the voting center, the registration center is at Kodje. There's an electoral area called Edretia or Ankasi. To move from Edretia and Ankasi to Kodje is about 20 kilometers.
Okay.
Ordinarily, you won't have, let's say, somebody who has just turned 18, who is living there, who may not even have a source of livelihood, move all the way from there to come and register. So the political parties oftentimes take it upon themselves to convey these people. And that is not a crime. No, it is not.
It is
not a crime. It is not a crime to provide a means of transport for somebody who wants to register. It is not a crime.
No, it is not.
It is not.
It is not.
And then secondly,
it is not a crime to provide a means of transport.
For me, then we go to
secondly, I mean, the issue about who is eligible to register, right? If you look at the registrations regulation 1995 CI 12 section 55.3D, it says that somebody who lives there, an inhabitant of an area, or ordinarily someone who lives there ordinarily, but you realize that you transport somebody from another place, another area to a certain district office where the EC official cannot even verify where they live. And so that's a risk in the basket.
So
that's of course. And that is a point of contention. And that is the risk. I'm coming, please. That is the risk involved with Basin, because they bring in aliens and then they take them to the district office.
So this is different, George, to what is being alleged.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Just a minute.
Okay, so let me round up for me.
My brother.
Wrong idea of.
No. My brother.
There are two things. I've said two things.
Okay.
Basin of people.
Right.
To the district registration to go and register.
People within the same
Basin aliens. To go and register. These are two.
So maybe you are not privy to what
if somebody passes aliens.
Helen, we're in this country where people come all the way from Togo, cross the borders, and then register.
Now.
No, but it's a fact.
I think the solution to this I already stated.
And that is why. Oh, please.
Okay, George,
you are interjecting me. Let me wrap up.
I have to be fair. So in 30 seconds, and then I go on to.
That is why, Helen. You see, they are coming at me, but let me make it clear to them that we don't live in a glass house.
Are you caught in the crossfire?
But we are not in the glass house that they live in.
You made a statement.
So I can throw stones.
No.
And we don't live in a glass house they live in, so we can throw stones. It's a fact.
Please.
We live
What
in
is
this
a
country
fact?
that they bring in aliens.
Who brings in aliens?
Both the MPP and the NDC.
Okay.
Bring in aliens.
Does this allegation that you have made this morning is weighty?
Let me explain.
Helen.
Okay, so end for me, please.
I mean, have the whole time.
Oh, but you're interjecting me. So when you keep on interjecting me, so
finally we wrap up, and then we have to move on. Yes.
Helen, we're in this country for so long. Anytime there's an EC registration exercise, right? People are ushered into the country to register, right? And that is why the immigration is always on the alert to protect our borders. And we know it clearly. We shouldn't sit down here and pretend. You understand? And that is why we're saying that until we change our ways as Ghanaians and we move away from the duopoly of the MPP and the NDC, we will not have that absolute social and economic development that we want to see in this country.
This is Dr. Ramzi's conviction.
I think I can forgive my brother.
For what?
They are now coming to the political scene.
When you say they are now coming, they're not now coming.
It's obvious he doesn't understand the terrain. We can sit here and talk, like my brother was saying. When you go to a constituency like Shao Sudoku, where the registration center is Dodowa, somebody has to travel from Akuse. Do you know Akuse?
That's about 20 kilometers, 25,
more than 20
kilometers away.
More than 20 kilometers from Akuse to Dodowa. It's close to 40 kilometers or 50 kilometers just to come and register.
Didn't the EC factor that?
Oh, please. If you are the mother, would you allow your 18-year daughter to do that travel? So it's obvious they may put themselves together. Okay, maybe Dodowa, what's the name? Asichwari, and all those villages around. Let's put ourselves together. Let's take a bus, since the registration center is not in our area.
So this is what the parties will then do to assist
it's just a common
anybody else can do it.
So the NDC and the NPP, you agree on this particular front?
Because they are corporate on it.
They
turn themselves into a transport
service. Let's get this thing right. We should not misinform the public.
No, but it's a fact.
Right.
It's a fact.
The issue is this.
Right.
We have a situation at hand. The registration centers are not
in close proximity.
Exactly, to the people.
The issue should have factored that.
Well, I think we're talking about two things, and we can conclude in this manner because of what is being said this morning.
We have a Ghana card system.
That according to Doc, apart from the busing that you, George, encourage.
Who doesn't?
We'll pack it.
Let me just make it. Bring your facts.
10 seconds.
George, I can only afford 10 seconds.
How do you expect somebody in Akuse come and register in Dodowa?
I think that point is made. Just finally, then we have to
just 10 seconds. So you see,
have to take a bus.
Some of these things, Dr. Ramzi is not appreciating the issues because his party is not represented in any voting center. So he doesn't understand these things. If you come to my constituency, there are 38 electoral areas. 38 electoral areas, and the distribution is very sparse. You can have, if you have, let's say, a registration center which is a Kodie, there are people who will travel 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers whatsoever to get there. It is not a crime under Ghanaian law for any Ghanaian citizen or any group to provide a means of transport for somebody who wants to register to exercise their franchise to be able to do so. Thank you, Helen.
All right, fantastic. So simply put,
Helen, the point is that you should factor it. The issue should have factored this, that the Ghanaian society is being plagued with a hard economic condition, that they can't afford basic transport means.
I don't think is in contention. The proximity is not in contention.
We have polling stations, right?
Right.
So, and we also have the Ghana card.
I agree with you.
So you could have created an online system for continuous registration online.
In the absence of that, how do we plug in some of these
with what we have
at the moment?
I mean, we shouldn't have even gotten to this place in the first place.
That's a fair point.
You waste $56 million on the National Cathedral. You waste $12 million to contractors at the Palugu Dam who haven't even.
And on that note, Doc.
And then on that note, Doc. You put in systems in place that are disenfranchising our Ghanaian our people. Please.
You know,
on that note,
I wanted to.
I think what he needs is a press conference.
This one, if we don't get into this one, my listeners will lynch me this morning. So please permit me. Let's move on very quickly. We can summarize just before we go. Now, the case of the ambulance trial, the twists and turns, the saga, it has reached fever pitch. If you ask me, take a listen to what I'm talking about. This one concerns the case of Dr. Kaisel Atuforsen, minority leader in the House of Parliament, and two other accused persons. Well, the third accused is alleging coercion by the Attorney General of Ghana to implicate first accused Atuforsen. Take a listen and we'll come back and discuss this in some more detail.
Being cross-examined by Godwin Edugitamaklo, counsel for Kaisel Atuforsen, was cautioned by Justice Ifya Sewa Asaribuchi to be direct in his responses rather than going around it and wasting the court's time. The third accused was responding to questions on who was behind approval of letters of credit for the purchase of the ambulances. Attorney General Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, reacting to the judge's caution, accused Richard Jakpa of defending Dr. Kaisel Atuforsen. This triggered the third accused, who retorted that the Attorney General appeared pained because he had engaged him to help the state make a case against Dr. Kaisel Atuforsen. Richard Jakpa alleged that he had been approached by the AG and had had odd-hour meetings with him on implicating the former deputy minister, but he refused. The minority leader, who was present in court, was taken aback and looked upset by the development. Justice Ifya Sewa Asaribuchi then stood down the case and called all representing lawyers as well as the Attorney General into her chambers for a meeting. After about 30 minutes, the case was recalled, after which she indicated that at the next hearing, a stay of proceedings motion filed by counsel for Ato Forson will be heard. The case has been adjourned to May 28 for further cross-examination of Richard Jakpa. Dr. Keso Ato Forson, together with Dr. Sylvester Animana and Richard Jakpa, are on trial for causing financial loss of 2.37 million euros to the state through a contract to purchase 200 ambulances for the Ministry of Health. The state has, however, discontinued the case against Dr. Sylvester Animana. Lord Idwasari, TV3 News, Accra.
We were shocked to the marrow when the third accused, under cross-examination, disclosed to the courts that the Honorable Attorney General has been reaching out to him, calling him over the phone, and that he has met with him in person, and that the Attorney General has been asking him to give false testimony to the courts and skew his testimony in such a way that corroborates the case of the Attorney General against the first accused, so that the first accused can be convicted and jailed. He said this in open courts and asked that it should be put on record. And her ladyship also directed that same should be captured by the record. And so what we are talking about is something which is on record. And we as a political party are totally scandalized and disgusted by this development. We are not surprised because we've always known that this is a stock in trade of Godfred Yeboah-Dame. This is not a man who is interested in justice or the law. This is not a man who is an Attorney General and Minister of Justice. No, this is a devious character with no honor whatsoever, no respect for justice, no respect for the rule of law, no respect for the rights of accused persons, and who always go about manipulating judicial processes to get his way at all cost.
Scandalized and disgusted is what Sami Jemfi describes the feeling as far as this ambulance purchase trial is concerned. Some 17 minutes to the top of the hour. We'll go on a very quick break. When we come back, we sink our teeth into this. The Attorney General, of course, has responded. We'll get into that response and then pick the thoughts of my panelists. Don't go anywhere. This is still 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7.
Dado, Dado, what a spices, Dado, who be dear Philly, Dado,
we did the lava McBrown, but Dado spices here what Jenny say, nanya good taste. If we say, yeah, the natural spices and yeah, you're gonna have you, Annie, you want all purpose, stew, noodles, curry and nutmeg, and a jollof. Dado spices, taste yummy, taste lemon, Dado spices. Taste day inside.
Dado spices, a better from Sano.
Hello, Ghana. Are you tired of the same old political rhetoric? Do you believe it is time for a change that truly represents the voices of our youth, women, and children? I present to you Nana Kwame Bediako. He is a visionary leader with a passion for making our country better through innovative industrial revolution. Together, we can change the political narrative and create a government that truly represents the interest of all citizens. Join this journey to build a better and inclusive future for all by contributing to our Save Ghana Fund campaign. Your support, no matter the amount, is not just a donation. It is an investment in the shared desire for a more prosperous, equitable, and better nation. To donate, visit www.nkb.com.gh or dial *887*2024 #. Thank you for your support.
Sunrise on 3FM 92.7 is the best breakfast show in all of the land. And yes, we do say so ourselves. This is still the big conversation this morning. And so far, we've tackled issues concerning the ongoing voter registration, the free fall of the city. Although maybe I shouldn't call it that. George says, Sikampedede. So we'll say the city is having some bit of a tough time, if you will. But now we're turning our attentions to the ambulance purchase trial concerning the minority leader in the House of Parliament, Dr. Ato Keso Forson. The third accused in the case says that the Attorney General has been coming to him at all times of the evening, odd hours, if you will, to persuade him to to swing the trial, if you will, in the AG's favor. The Attorney General has responded, though not in court, to let us know that he too has some evidence to show or prove that Dr. Atukeso Forson came to him to try and get him to drop the case. We have some evidence that is pending from the NDC. We're waiting for this evidence. We're told that there's a press conference that is pending. Some of you have described this as some sort of telenovela. The twists and turns, you say this is stuff of cinematic proportions. So, gentlemen, I'll come to you, but I'll start off with courage. The NDC says we should wait for an explosive press conference sometime before Wednesday. Why are you teasing us in this manner? Why have you not already brought out this evidence that you say you have that implicates the Attorney General and Minister of Justice?
Thank you, Helen. I don't think it's teasing you. It's unfortunate, the current turn of events. This issue is in court, so I don't intend saying much about it.
Of course.
What I want to say is that I think when it comes to plea bargaining, the law is clear as far as the Act 1079 is concerned. It's clear how plea bargaining is supposed to be done. You have to inform the court, and the court will then adjourn the case and allow the parties involved to go into that and report back to the court. The proceedings that have, since the start of this case, the beginning of this case, the proceeding has gone on. I don't think there has been any time in court where they have asked the court that they are going for plea bargaining. So for a lawyer of such a standing, long standing in the bar, I'm talking about the lawyer for the Honorable Minority Leader, Atu Forson, to make such an allegation and knowing the consequences of his allegation.
When you say the lawyer, what?
I'm talking about the lawyer who is accusing the Attorney General.
Well, I believe it was the third accused, the businessman Richard Jakpa, who actually made, he's the one that is alleging under cross-examination. That's what he said.
To make such an accusation, he must be standing on something. He knows the consequences of that if it turns out to be untrue. So for him to come out and make such a statement...
I've heard a lot being said, he's made this in court, he made this statement in court. People lie under oath.
That's what I'm saying, that the issue is in court, so I don't intend saying a lot about it. But he can't just get up and make those statements. The consequences are dire. It can be very, 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 very serious. So he knows what it's about. And at the right time, like my party is saying, all will unfold.
So you say this week we should expect some sort
of
press
unfold at the right time.
Is the right time this week?
All will unfold at the right time.
I'm told Monday or Tuesday.
Let's wait for that time, and the evidence will be put out there for all to see. But if I'll say something, Atu Forson was the Deputy Finance Minister.
Correct.
If I'm right. And this case came in. All the ministries have their duties. When you are in the Ministry of, let's say, Works and Housing, or Ministry of Energy, and whatever transaction you engage in there, it's just fair that there's a particular ministry who will just do some few verification and execute payment.
We're not going into the merits of the case, are we?
I'm not going into the merits of the case and do payment. Is that not it? So why me as a minister, deputy minister, who just did payment, should be held accountable when the sector minister who did all the transaction and advice for payment to be done, and to the extent that that sector minister have even come to court to give witness to the affirmation that indeed there was all these things. I'm not going to go into the merit of the case, so I will leave it there. And I'm saying that regarding the accusation of what the Attorney General, the current Attorney General, his behavior and the rest, I have always believed that the Attorney General, Godfred Dami, in my opinion, he always believed in ways and means of winning cases.
What do you mean by that?
That's why I say, in my opinion.
In your opinion.
I always believe that he does not practice law, but he believes in winning cases by ways and means.
Ways and means.
Exactly. And in the coming days, the entire Ghanaians...
You say by Tuesday, that's tomorrow.
Don't worry.
Or is it Wednesday?
Don't worry, madam. In the coming days, we will prove to Ghanaians.
Well, because you're not the only person who is parroting this statement that Attorney General, as you have called it, ways and means. This perception that is being put out there, is this not dangerous? This is our Minister of Justice.
Well, we're in this country when Anas came out with a whole lot of issues on judges, even judges. You saw it. Several judges have to go home.
Okay.
So don't worry.
Let me bring in George and then I'll bring in Doc, because you only have some 7 minutes to go. Time flies when you're having fun. Indeed. George, this is no small matter.
So if you look at my brother Courage, you'll be asking yourself why all of a sudden he has lost the steam and alacrity and everything.
When you say he has lost the steam, I haven't been able to measure his initial steam when this happened. So when you say lost the steam, what are you measuring this against?
The steam
because
with which,
as in the steam this morning?
Yes. The steam with which he has...
You say it has declined. The energy with which he was making his submissions.
Woefully.
You say there's nothing to be said.
Woefully.
We shouldn't anticipate any press conference, any explosive press conference.
No, as for something to be said, anybody can just say anything. You understand? In the court, and I was happy when you drew his attention to the fact that even people lie under oath, and that is the more reason why we have things like perjury. You understand? And so, if when people make statements to the effect that, oh, I have a recording about somebody and things like that, first and foremost, they need to avert their minds to Article 18.2, which streamlines how even if something is admissible before courts and a recording and all of that, how it is done, you understand? So if, for example, Elena, I'm speaking to you and I want to record you, the law requires that I should put you on notice that I want to make a recording of you before it is admissible before the court. The only caveat is the fact that if that matter is of public interest, then whichever consideration may not matter. Now back to...
That was a Supreme Court ruling.
Yes.
So
and I should also say that because of time, I know we wanted to go a little bit deeper into this. We've exhausted our time, so I'll summarize,
round up.
And then
now
we might have to schedule a part 2.
No problem. Now I'm coming to the issue of Mr. Jakpa and the claims that he has made in court. As for making claims in court, anybody can make claims in court. And so there have been arguments on social media and other avenues where people say, oh, he said this about the Attorney General. He said the Attorney General has been pushing him and all of that.
Oh, he said this on oath in the court.
Yes.
So whilst I agree that merely saying something on oath does not make it fact, because people do lie on oath, it's important to actually think about it. This was said in court. He asked that it be recorded. So you can put some weight on that, because one knows the consequences of perjuring oneself.
My dear Ellen, as for saying something in court and the weight that is ascribed to it, we will know it after the matters are interrogated with the procedure of law.
Right.
Where in this country, in the 2020 election petition, when NDC presented a case to court, they said they had evidence of some impropriety whatsoever. When we got to the stages of the trial where it progressed, and the then General Secretary, who is now National Chairman, was asked by the Supreme Court to provide evidence, something that he has said he had brought to court. He now said that he did not come to court with any evidence, but then they had initially said they had issues with impropriety and they were going to prove it. And so, as for what he has said, he is at liberty to say anything. I can go to court and I'll be at liberty to say anything. But then just saying that is not sacrosanct. It will be tested. And for those who have had issues with what he said and all of that, personally, I don't have any issue, because one, it was not the Attorney General who was on the stand, and so he cannot defend himself against something that somebody else is saying unless he is called to the stand. And he will also have his day in court. Now the laws are there, and then we'll go by the laws. One of your colleague journalists in a sister station did his own bite on the issues and where he looked at certain matters. The NEC has categorically stated that there were phone conversations between the Attorney General and the third accused, Mr. Jakpa. Now, I want to just go in a bit on that.
Just in a minute for me,
yes.
Please, George.
So when you have matters of such nature before the court, you cannot deal with any of the parties before the court unless, of course, you are dealing directly with the person's lawyer or the person's lawyer and the person together. Now, Mr. Jakpa went to court and told the court that he had relieved his lawyer and he was going to get a new lawyer, which means that within the period that he supposedly sacked his lawyer, at the time that he introduces another lawyer to the court, he is not with legal counsel.
Okay.
And so if the Attorney General supposedly engaged with him, he will not be flouting any law. Now, one of your colleague journalists has also made a whole thing about this thing where the person suggests, Mr. Paul Adomontre, let me mention his name, so I'm only referencing him.
Sure.
Where he suggests that there was an engagement between the Attorney General and one of the Supreme Court justices on the invitation of the said Supreme Court justices. And when he got there, Mr. Jakpa was apparently related to him, and so they happened to be in the same space. And then they may have had a friendly conversation whatsoever. And then...
who may have had a friendly conversation? The Attorney General and Mr. Jakpa?
No, so there was a said meeting between the Attorney General and the Supreme Court Justice.
Yes.
And then Mr. Jakpa happened to be there because he is related by blood to the said justice.
Right.
And then once people are in the space, like my brother Ramzi, I know him, whether he's with Afafranto or anything, we are good friends. If we meet in any setting, we will definitely exchange pleasantries or make...
So you would describe this as an exchange of pleasantries between the Attorney General and a third accused in an active case where a plea bargain has not been initiated.
So that's where... on the matters of plea bargains, a lot of plea bargains were sent in, and your producer tells me that you've dealt with it.
We have received that. Sadly, because of time, we definitely have to park it here. So please summarize for me, and then talk. I can only give you 20 seconds. You have to forgive me, please.
So what I want to say emphatically is that, one, on the position of government, the Attorney General has not flouted any law, and that the Attorney General will prove his case in court in accordance with our law. Now, what the NDC seeks to do is to make this case a political case, where it now becomes a matter of moral suasion, and then people will be making arguments for us to make certain considerations whatsoever. And you see, this is underpinned by the fact that when this case started, lawyers for the defendants went to court to tell the court that there was no case at all. And the courts disagreed upon the prima facie being available. The court disagreed and said that indeed there's a prima facie, so let's proceed.
Okay.
And so, all on the side of government, the Attorney General will prove his case in court.
Okay.
And what anybody has said whatsoever, these are matters of law and they'll be treated as law.
Dog, time has run away from us, and I know, 20 seconds.
Today you've boxed me really in the middle, but that's fine. I mean, I know there's sometimes I can get more time, but sometimes I don't get more time. But anyways.
But today I think I've been fair, haven't I? Gentlemen, assess the time allocation. Have I been fair?
Well, I think George has spoken the most.
George has spoken the most.
I think George has. But anyway.
George, I think you have spoken the most. Courage, what do you say? What say you? George has spoken the most. Okay, well, they have more to answer, isn't it? They have to answer all our questions.
But in any case, it's 2-1. Two people against government. In any case.
How is that so? You agreed on a number of things. You agreed on capital flights. You agreed on speculation. The two of you agreed on the busing of candidates.
Fundamentally, it's 2 against 1.
Fundamentally, it is one people, one destiny. Fundamentally, you are development partners.
I agree with you on that.
The quick one. Are you ready for the NDC says appetite should be wet before Wednesday? We'll see something we've never seen.
Ellen, I mean, the genesis of this issue comes from the very fact.
If we go to the genesis, we'll never reach revelations.
I'm wrapping up. I'm just giving a summary.
Yes, please.
We've seen it clearly, and that is why we're saying that the NPP and the NDC are the same when it comes to their governance.
And then by extension, the movement for change?
They are the same. No, we're different. I mean, we are the movement for change. We are not...
The movement, you move from a certain place.
But we are an amalgamation of academicians, mechanics. I mean, different people that did not belong to the MPP. We have some members of the NDC part of us. Former members.
You have some NDC members part of the movement.
Yes, we have CBP, PNC, and the Alliance for Revolutionary Change.
Is it Courage?
So let me wrap up, please.
I'm about to be arrested.
Helen,
yes.
You realize that the issue of soul sourcing is a problem in this country that NDC and MPP have always propagated.
Movement for Change says no more soul sourcing.
No more soul sourcing, unless in emergency situations as provided by the law. But when they procure those ambulances, I don't think we were in the COVID era whatsoever. But here's a case.
Yes, please.
I mean, as a country, we have politicized everything.
Everything.
And we hope the stance of the we members of the Movement for Change is that we should have legal accountability.
Absolutely.
That the MPP and the NDC should not divert the public minds on this issue, and that we should see the need for justice and accountability in adjudicating on this issue. And I know that the justices of the court will do just. You understand?
So we wait till tomorrow when court resumes, and I think we can put some of these matters
from Dowenya area.
The traffic is crazy.
Situation.
Okay.
They are asking you
to
try and make a stop.
Dowenya. All right, gentlemen.
And then lastly, I came in with a quote.
Dr. Ramzi, Courage, what a morning it has been so far. It's been great to see you here, vibrant on a Monday morning.
I came in, if you allow me, I got another revelation.
I have a song for all of us. This one you all enjoy.
I got another revelation.
Doc and Courage. Thank you so much.